Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Haddonfield Horrors podcast, where we review horror movies and horror franchises. I'm Mark,
I'm Tawan.
I'm Maria.
and today we are ranking the Insidious franchise. We have completed yet another franchise retrospective, and we have come to do our traditional ranking episode. Again, the rules are we're going to be ranking from our least favorite to our favorite. So to kick us off, Maria, what's in your fifth spot for Insidious?
My fifth spot is definitely gonna be the fourth movie, The Last Key, because it was dumb. The the script was just awful, extremely cheesy. Some of the scenes that went together didn't make any sense. It was not scary. I feel like it was definitely a repeat. Like I feel like I definitely saw a lot of the same thing from the last movie, so it wasn't even really like a surprise. Like nothing they did shocked me in any way. Um, yeah, I just did not did not like it. It just it was an awful movie. My God, it was so bad. So yeah, for my fifth place is the fourth movie.
Tawan, what's coming in number five for you?
Same as Maria, The Last Key is definitely my least favorite Insidious movie. Um, I think out of all of them, including the Red Door, which bored me in like the beginning, but I would say The Last Key itself didn't add much to anything for me. And I could say the same about the third one as well. But with the last key, it filled in like some backstory for Elise, and introduced like some new characters, stuff like that. But one of the characters, which was they were both the nieces of Elise, one of them got taken out immediately by the key demon, and the other one was just a MacGuffin when Elise got put in the further because she now had the same abilities. So it was just like one of those. This could have been a different movie of a different of like a standalone movie or something, and it still probably would have felt. I probably would have still felt the same about it. So it just sucks that it's in this franchise, and it's only carried by the fact that Lynn Shay is just so good at the Elise character.
Well, looks like we're going to have like a little three-way tie here because in my fifth spot, it's also going to be the last key. It highlights my biggest complaint is that they killed off Elise too soon, and they did everything they could in the subsequent movies to bring her back. We all of a sudden she has this long lost brother, and she has nieces, and she has this abusive backstory, and there's all this stuff going on, and it just it felt so disconnected from those first two movies. It feels disconnected from that third movie, and it's just not good. But in my number four spot, I have Insidious Chapter Two because I feel like as a follow up to that first one, it just does not feel the same. It Dalton was so much the focus or the MacGuffin, quote unquote, of that first movie, and he just completely absent from the second. And they tried really hard to be the Shining, and it just did not hit the way that they wanted it to. And it was like, really disappointing. But what about you, Tawan? What comes into your fourth spot?
For my number four spot, I actually do have to go with the Red Door. Now, I did like the movie itself, and I like to see that we got to see where these characters are and now, because we we only saw bits and pieces of like the kids in the first two movies. Yes, Dalton was the main one being affected, but he was out for most of the movie. Foster and then the baby were like out for most of the movies, and it was mainly like a family drama focused on the adults trying to figure out everything that was going on. So with that, we have not with the Red Door now, we got to see more of Dalton, grown up, trying to figure it out in college, and then getting sucked back into the further and figuring things out, and then Josh as well being on the outs with his family, divorce, all that stuff. So it was good, but it did kind of like bore me towards the beginning of it with how slow it was to build up to getting to what we're used to from Insidious. But I still liked the movie. It just wasn't the best for me.
Maria, what's at number 4 for you?
So, what's at number four for me is actually the first Insidious. Um, I feel like
Whoa.
I just feel like compared to the other movies, because a lot of things have changed, throughout the movies. They've definitely taken it in a different direction. Don't get me, it's still a good movie, don't get me wrong. After the fourth, excluding the fourth, all you get is a bunch of good movies. But like the first one, I feel like it's boring a little bit because I think both Renee and Josh are kind of boring, and they're technically supposed to be the main cast. And then on top of that, um, you get Dalton, who's supposed to be kind of the main, also part of the main cast, but he's also in a coma most of the time. Um, I mean, don't get me wrong, the music is amazing. You do still get jump scares. I just feel like compared to the other movies, I find it boring. So yeah.
Well, Maria, what's number 3 for you?
Number three for me is the Red Door. I I liked that it was a little bit different than the rest. I liked how uh you get more of like Dalton and you get more of like, Josh and a little bit more of the family. I guess the reason this is I guess why like it has such a high ranking is I like the fact that they're not relying so heavily on like Elise and tech and specs in order to get like the storyline moving. I liked the cameos. I love the cameos. I thought they were pretty cool. But I feel like it's a good ending. Though I'm still kind of pissed because they never really like continued from like the scene or from the second movie, like that post credit scene, where like Elise goes into the house and then she hears like creaking sounds and she goes, "Oh my God," and then it cuts. If that is technically supposed to show you that the red demon is still there, then that's kind of really disappointing. Um, but I mean, I don't know. I really liked the movie. I liked what Patrick Wilson did. I feel like for a debut, it's really, really not that bad, and I feel like it's a good. I don't know. I think it's a good like mesh to like the series. It's I feel like the Red Door is what the fourth movie should have been. They should have just stopped with the lead, stopped going through her storyline and milking the shit out of that, and they should have just done the movie that they should have done from the beginning, and they should have kept Elise and Tucker Specs out of it. Not that I don't love them, because I do. It's just like. I mean, you were gonna get rid of them from the beginning, then you should have done that. At least died in the first movie, and you keep bringing her back, and then you made that horrible fourth movie, and but I mean, I really like the scares here. I do see it more as a comfort movie. I find it a little bit more exciting than the first movie, just a little bit, just a little bit. um I do think Insidious, the first one, is probably creepier than the Red Door. I just feel like I got a lot more out of the characters in the Red Door compared to the first Insidious.
For me, coming in at number 3, I'm going to have to say it's Insidious, the first one. It's a good jumping off point, but like you said, Maria, it's kind of boring at times, and it's kind of all over the place. Some of the things just it feels like we're dropped into the middle of a story, but the story is just beginning. Like I feel like I'm just as confused, dazed and confused as Josh is when we first meet Elise. I'm just like, who are you? What's happening? What's going on? Can you help me? Like, it's a good movie. It's a good like franchise, like kicking off point, but it has its issues. What about you, Tawan? What's your number three?
My number three is Insidious Chapter 2. So, for me, I thought I liked Chapter 2 more than I did when we were doing the reviews for this, but after a rewatch of it, it didn't do as much for me as I remembered it, but I still liked the movie and definitely like it more than the other two that are in my 4 and 5 slots. But I just think it didn't really get me on the same level as Insidious one and like Chapter 3. And while I did like the story that was presented with like the bride and how we got to that point and everything, I don't know. Like I just felt it could have been a bit more for me. There were definitely some good like scares in it, and even that, especially that the one I always thought was hilarious when Renee got slapped by the by Mother Mater. That was hilarious. But besides that, and having Elise dead at this point, I don't, it wasn't doing as much for me on this like new rewatch.
Well, Maria, what do you have in your number two spot?
For number two, I have Insidious Chapter 2. I really liked the fact that, Eleanor, and I like the whole Eleanor and Tuck and Specs combo. I feel like it was pretty cool. I liked how I liked how in the beginning, I liked how it kind of directly because it's obviously a direct sequel from like from the first one, and I liked how you kind of see like the differences and you see some similarities. And with Renee, you kind of start going through everything, and you're like, yeah, Josh is acting kind of weird. And I liked the fact that it was like a serial killer that Josh had actually known. Like I thought that was pretty cool. I enjoyed the little true crime aspect of it. Because I feel like it's pretty creepy. It's not some random ghost. It's some guy who was actually evil in his past life, along with his mom, who was just equally as evil. And I liked how throughout the movie you can see how Josh is like decaying. You know, I thought that was pretty cool. I liked the scares in this one. I liked when they were like um at the hospital, and also I think they were like they found like where his victims were. I thought that like those scenes were pretty great. Like because it adds spice to everything. Like it's not just because you see Josh acting weird, Renee trying to figure things out, Renee getting yeah, her getting slapped around like Jesus. Um, I like Chuck and Specs as they're trying to kind of like also get through the loss of Elise. Um, so yeah, I feel like the second one is definitely a step up from the first, but it keeps like the essence of the first one, that it's above, the other movies that I feel like had lost that insidious edge.
Tawan, what's your number two spot?
My number two spot will go to Insidious Chapter 3. I will have to say that one grew on me a bit because I don't remember liking it as much as I did for this rewatch. So I kind of had a flip where I didn't like two as much on this rewatch of the movies, but I came back to liking three a decent amount, and I like the story in three, and also that I think what I liked about three on the rewatch with it is that I like the story a bit more in this one compared to what we got in the second movie and then like the fourth one especially. And I like the new characters that we had, the new family in general. It was like a single dad, the mom like passed and stuff, so they were just trying to keep it together and keep moving as like a unit. And there was just like some slight family issues there. And once the daughter got was getting possessed and such, it was pretty good from there. We saw um how Elise met Tucker and Specs, so that was good to see. And we I just thought it was like a really good like Insidious movie, and I it definitely grew on me a lot, and I'm glad that I gave it a rewatch, and it's definitely moved up my ranks.
Sorry, yeah, I'm trying to cook and record. For me, my number two spot is the Red Door. It it kind of closed off the quote unquote trilogy for me. You know, part one, part two, the Red Door. It gave us a look of what happened to the family after that last scene, and after we last saw them in part two, it showed us that there were consequences and ramifications for their actions, and that we we put the demon on mute, and we thought we won, but it was still there, just waiting for its time. And beating that demon had ripple effects across the family. So I think this is a great movie. But to Juan, kick us off. What is your top spot?
Top spot for me has to go to the original, first Insidious. I like the first Insidious a lot. I feel like it has a great atmosphere. The sound design in it was really good. It had some really good James Wan jump scares Conjuring before we got to that point. And even though I will agree, like the story and stuff is kind of I would say pretty mediocre, and it's just standard. Um, Possession, child is possessed, or in a situation with the apparition or ghost and demon, and they have to bring in someone to dissolve it. And I thought it was just carried out really good though for what it was. Um, and really, the thing that keeps me coming back to it the most is just like the scares. They had it had really good scares in it, and I thought James Wan did a great job with how that was handled because I think I mentioned this when we did the first movie. I don't feel like cheated out when James Wan does like jump scares or like scary things. There are things that you like really should be like scared of if you were in that situation, or just like seeing it. For example, the lipstick face demon behind like Josh when the mom was talking to him. Like I always thought that like that's always gonna be like a great like scene to me. And or when the little kid pops out the closet when Renee is like cleaning up. So stuff like that was really good, and I just think it holds up good for me still, and I think to a lot of others it does as well. So number one for me is the first Insidious.
Maria, what's number one for you?
My number one is the third Insidious. I don't know. I just feel like it's such a great movie, even just by itself. I feel like, I mean, it's definitely different from the other movies, I feel, but I feel like they kind of kept, because Elise and Tuck is there. It's basically how Elise, Tuck, and Specs kind of became like a group, but I think it's definitely a movie you can watch by itself and not really like, you know, lose out on watching it because you haven't seen the other movies. It's that I don't know, I think it's a great movie. Loved the scares. It's definitely super creepy. I watch this movie a lot and I would probably still watch it a lot. I feel like the effects are also really good. I feel like it's not till the third movie where you can kind of tell. I feel like when you get more of the sense of what the further is. I feel like you can kind of see that, these are, ghosts, people who are being tormented in the afterlife, and I feel like that's so cool. I feel like in the first movie, you don't really see them. I mean, you do see the ghosts, but you just see them playing out, an event in their life over and over and over and over. Where I feel like as the third one, you see them like suffering, because that's technically what they're supposed to be doing, is suffering. I thought that was cool. I liked the fact that like you don't get some great villain here. It's literally just an old man who was miserable and he's making everybody miserable. and he, enjoys it. I liked the fact that, yeah, and I feel like all the characters had, you know, actually had personalities. Like you see Elise kind of growing throughout the movie. You see, Quinn and like her family having to get over, the grief of losing their mom. Um, and I don't know, I love this movie. I feel like it's just so good.
Well, for me, my number one is also Insidious Chapter 3. Being the newbie out of the three of us, this one really, this one gave me what I wanted from the first two. Like, I felt like the first two, they had a family, but they didn't utilize the family. This one utilized the family. Even the little brother, he wasn't there a lot, but when he was there, he had opinions. He wanted to be part of Climax, but he also understood that, oh, I can't. Like, without the little brother, we would have never even, they would have never had Tucker and Specs. So it's just like everyone had a part to play in the movie. And again, like you said, Maria, the villain was so much better this one. It wasn't some possession story. Like he had a crappy life. Now he's in the afterlife. Now he wants to torment people. Like he was just a bad entity who just wanted to be bad. Who didn't want to be someone else. And I love that. It just made it all, it was just a good movie. And like, and I agree with you. It could be a standalone movie and it would still be as good. Like it could have, this could have been a complete spinoff that would have kicked off a whole nother like thread of Insidious movies, and I would have been down for the ride. Like I love Part Three. That's why it's my number one. And with that, guys, we are done. But I do want to ask, who of all the movies, which one had your favorite villain? Is it the lipstick face demon? Was it the bride in black with her with the mom? Was it the guy who couldn't breathe? Who was your favorite? Twan.
Probably the guy, the old man who couldn't breathe, or the man with the mask. Probably for the reasons that, like you kind of mentioned as well, that he he was just kind of doing what he did because he liked doing it. Like he didn't want to really come back like that. Like he been hunting and doing and trapping people in the further for years at that point. So I thought that was like the most probably interesting one that they had so far.
Maria, what about you?
Um, I agree because I feel like with the woman in black, he was kind of a traumatized person who went on to kill people, and realistically, what he wanted was to get his life back as a kid. But I feel like, yeah, with and on top of that, the the lipstick demon, I feel like just doesn't do it for me. He looks too much like a person that I just can't get really scared. And I feel like the worst thing he's really done is just taken Foster, not Foster, taken Dalton, and trying to possess his body, but that's it. Whereas I feel like the man who can't breathe, I just think, yeah, like like I said, like he's literally just trapping souls. He's not going to like specific people because you're the chosen one. Like with like the whole like lipstick demon and Dalton. He's literally just trapping souls, trying to look for like vulnerable people to get them to to submit to him, I guess, so that he can stay miserable, so everybody can stay miserable. And I feel like it's just that fact that just makes things scarier. And he also, like, his character design was also really creepy, I feel, because he was, I think most of the time he was, he seemed weak, but he wasn't. And then on top of that, under his like breathing mask, he just looked awful. And I'm not really counting like the uh the keys demon as a villain because to me he kind of looks the same as the man who can't breathe. Like I feel like they have really similar character designs, except the key demon has keys. Like that's it. Like and I just feel like I mean, and like I guess realistically, they kind of do the same thing. Like they kind of keep people trapped somewhere where they relive their worst mistakes over and over and over, except, yeah, actually, I was gonna say except, the man who can't breathe makes them do it, but the key demon was the same thing. He just makes them, do all these awful things. But I feel like the man who can't breathe, he's just a man. Like he's just a man who lived miserably and then died, and then he was like, you know what, I think I want to keep people here with me and be miserable, you know, and yeah, and he was just creepy. Like the scenes with him were just like I feel like we're scary, They it was just well, yeah, he's my favorite villain, basically. What I'm trying to say.
And we end this show the same way we started with a three-way tie because mine is also the man who couldn't breathe, simply because, like what you two said, he was just evil to be evil. There was there was no traumatic backstory. There was no, I want to escape and be real again. He just literally wanted people to be trapped there with him, and that was all you needed. And his, like you said, his design was creepy and cool. But with that, we are officially done with the Insidious franchise. We did it, guys. We ended another franchise. This was a short one. But join us next week as we kick off our little side thing we like to do where we each pick one of our favorite horror movies to review. And up first is Tuan. Tuan, what movie did you pick? What will we be reviewing?
We will be reviewing The Night House, which was released in, I believe, 2020, and it is kind of like slow burn type of haunting type of film.
Nice. Well, I haven't seen this one before, so this is going to be a new one for me. But I'm excited. Hopefully, it's good. Make sure you guys listen. Don't forget, if you're listening to us on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, do the same. And answer our poll. I don't know what the poll is yet, but answer the poll. But with that being said, guys, hope you enjoy. Good night. If you like this episode, please be sure to check out Hide and Fear Horror's past reviews from big franchises like Halloween, Friday the 13th, and the Chucky franchise, or one off reviews like Us and Midsommar. You can follow Hide and Fear Horrors on Instagram and TikTok, where the host posts updates and mini reviews. Full episodes are available on several podcasting platforms. If you're listening to us on YouTube, don't forget to please like and subscribe. Haddon for Horror is produced by Mark Smart, Maria Perez, and Tuan Griffin. Edited by Mark Smart. Theme by Lethal Injections. The Haddonfield Horrors podcast is a Letters to Media production.
Should we do an intro?